Hi there, Sean and Allison here from Spoken Garden.
You're here to dig deeper as part of our bonus companion guide to the book Growing Plants and Flowers for First-Time Gardeners. We're so happy you're here. Thank you for purchasing this book, and we can't wait to get started.
So in this video, we're going to show you how to actually plant bulbs in your garden. And did you know that there's 5 different kinds of bulbs that you can plant in your garden? It's true.
Not only are there 5 types of bulbs, there's also 2 different seasons in which you should be planting specific types of bulbs.
There's bulbs planted in the fall, and then there's bulbs planted in the spring. The bulbs you plant in the fall will flower that next spring. The bulbs you plant in that spring will actually flower in that summer. So it's kind of a sequence of events that needs to happen. So as you already read in the book, a bulb is an underground storage structure that is actually a plant, and this is how it actually grows and how it's evolved over time. That storage structure has all the energy that plant, that bulb, needs to actually grow roots, grow its shoots up, develop leaves and a flower, and go through its reproductive cycle.
It's so fascinating too, because one bulb can produce multiple stems with multiple flowers. It's amazing to think that all comes out of this little bulb.
So we're going to show you there's 5 different types of bulbs. Here they are, they're right here.
These are actually a blend of spring planted and fall planted bulbs from around our yards. We wanted to have every type available to show you the differences, what they look like, and the main thing, like Sean said, they all need to be planted very differently.
Yep. So first, there's true bulbs, and that encompasses plants and bulbs like tulips and daffodils. And so these are 2 true bulbs.
Fall planted bulbs.
And these are fall planted, yes.
Next is what's called a rhizome. This is actually a bearded iris, and it's a beautiful spring blooming bulb, meaning it gets planted in the fall. So we're gonna show you how to plant this. Look how much different these look compared to each other.
Yep. They have different growing points. They have different roots. They're just oriented. They're even different shapes, where this is elongated going this way, and this actually is just round with a tip on it. So they're very different. So next are tuberous roots. And so these are actually roots. These are underground and large stems. And so this is actually a storage structure, a bulb that has a specific place where the stem comes out and where the roots come out.
Okay, a 4th type of bulb is called a tuber. This is different from a tuberous root like Sean just explained with this dahlia bulb. So as you can see, look how different these look. And a lot of people get these mixed up and call them all tubers. A lot of gardeners call dahlias tubers, but they're specifically tuberous roots for all the reasons Sean mentioned, where you have roots coming out of a certain place and a stem coming out of one particular place. But a tuber, like these potatoes here, you didn't think of potatoes. Yeah, you can eat your bulbs, some of them. Actually, you can eat dahlia bulbs too, but that's a whole other story. So these potatoes have growing points all over. They don't have one specific stem or one specific root location. They have stems and roots coming out all over. And what's really cool, and you may have seen this before, the stem of a potato actually comes out of what's called an eye. It's these little growing points all over the surface, top and bottom. So the tricky part is knowing which part to plant facing up.
So lastly are corms. This is number 5. A corm is actually very similar to a true bulb in that it has a round shape, it has a specific place where the stem comes out and where the roots come out. Where it differs from a true bulb is that a corm is actually squatter. It's more of a squashed shape. It's still round, but it's thinner. Whereas the true bulb is a little bit more symmetrical, and it actually has an indentation on the top, the corm does. On the very top where the stem actually grows, there's an indentation on the very top of that bulb. And then the roots grow out of the exact opposite area. Now, as you can see, as the true bulb, it actually has a point or a tip to it. That's how a corm is very much different from a true bulb. So you can see we have our planting area right here, and we wanted to show you what you need to do to plant your bulbs in your garden in the ground. So first, you need to make sure that you have the correct place for your bulbs, and that includes making sure that it has the correct amount of sun or shade and that it has great soil drainage. So first thing you want to do is clear away the debris from your planting area. Then you want to move the mulch away from that too, to really expose the soil that you're going to be digging down into and placing your bulbs. So after you've actually cleared away the mulch, and if you have mulch, and started to look at where you're going to place your bulbs, you need to think about the depth that your bulb needs to be planted at and its spacing from other bulbs around. The general rule for any bulb that you have to plant it down at its depth that it needs is to go 3 times down in depth as the bulb actually is tall. So right now, this bulb itself is at about an inch, we'll say, and so we would plant this specific bulb 3 inches below the soil level. So something to also think about as you're thinking about depth is if you have mulch, you need to make sure that you're taking that depth to plant the bulb. The depth of the mulch needs to be added in and thought about to place the bulb down on the ground. So if you have mulch that is about 2 inches thick, you would make sure that you would only plant this bulb 3 inches total down. So you would go down to the mulch depth of 2 inches, let's say, and then you would only go down into the soil another inch, and that would be your 3-inch depth to plant this specific bulb. You wouldn't go any further down into the soil because then it'll be placed too far down in the soil, and it'll have a lot harder time of actually breaking through the soil with its actual stem and flowers to actually get into its growth phase. So you don't want to make the plant work harder to break through the soil and to grow and thrive. So now that we've talked about how deep to plant your bulbs, let's really quick tell you about our 3-step system to actually get the bulbs in the ground and be done planting your bulbs. Our 3-step system is 1, dig your hole. Step 2 is place your bulb. And step 3 is cover. So dig, place, cover your bulbs. 3-step system, very simple. Okay, so now that we've covered that, let's get to how to actually orient and plant each type of bulb. So for a true bulb, you want to actually plant it with the pointy top up, and these roots, or this root area, sometimes you won't see these roots here, and it'll just be kind of a little weird kind of area down here. Place that down, and that's how you orient it in its hole. So here we're going to place our daffodil bulb down in the hole, and again, here's our roots, here's our shoot that's going to pop up. This pointy top, or this cone part, needs to be placed and oriented so it's facing up. So here it is. There you go. That's all there is to it. Now if you wanted to do a tulip too, we would place it in the same orientation, tip up, bottom part with no roots, you can't see any roots, down. So tip up. There we go. That's it. So at this point, we've dug our hole, we've placed our bulb. Now for the last step, we would cover it, and we would nicely place the soil around this bulb to make sure that we didn't dislodge the bulb or push it over or get it in a wrong orientation than we wanted to be in. And that would be it. Dig, place, cover. So next up to plant is what we have here is a tuberous root. We showed you this before. It's got a very specific point where the shoot comes up out of the ground, and then the leaves form and the flower forms. And then there's also specific places where the roots develop. Now, tuberous root, this is a dahlia, so what we're going to do is we're going to orient this bulb with the shoot pointing up or oriented in the up position as far as we can or as close as we can, and then the roots facing down or just laid on its side. So we would orient this bulb exactly like this in the hole. So really, the hole is actually going to be a little bit longer than it is going to be wide. Just keep that in mind when you're digging a hole for a tuberous root. So here is our tuberous root, our dahlia. We're going to place it down in the hole and see how it goes lengthwise. This is how you would plant it. And make sure to have that stem pointing up, or even if looking at this here, these are actual old stems. We could actually point those either up or just to the side, and they'll still orient up. But the closest to up you can make it, the better. And for depth on this, again, 2 to 3 times the height of this bulb. So we would go to the tallest point on this bulb, which is this place right here. We would take this height, which is about 1.5 inches, and we would say 2 times this height deep down in the hole. So now that we have our bulb placed in the hole, we would then cover the bulb and do the same as we would for the other bulb that we just described, the true bulb. We would take soil and lightly place it over this, making sure not to push it around and dislodge it from how we actually placed it. Now we're going to cover it. And how you would cover it is you take the excess soil that you dug out, and we have it just around our hole here, and you'd lightly place it around there and make sure that it's just nice and firm around that. And then you take your mulch and you place your mulch on top of it and get that back up to the level that it was at before you started digging and the surrounding soil, so you can't see where the hole was. And that's it. That's what you need to do. So next up is planting corms. I have our gladiolus bulb right here, and so what we're going to make sure that we do is make sure that we have the stem portion, that we can actually still see this stem, but you wouldn't usually see this if you were planting this in the spring. You would actually see an indentation down in this area right here, and so that would be the top of the bulb. Then at the base, you might see roots, you might not see roots. So if you don't see roots, look at the bulb itself and look for that indentation, that little kind of bowl on the top of it, and that'll be the top of the bulb to point up. The rest of the bulb will be pointed down and in the correct orientation. Just look for that indentation.
So before we plant this bulb, before we plant this corm, we want to make sure we're getting the correct depth. And to do that, we take the corm and we go from its base to the very top portion of the bulb, and that is its height. That's how high it is. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that height and multiply it by 3 to get the depth to go down. This bulb right here is about an inch or maybe a little bit less in height. So we'll go down about maybe 2.5 inches in depth total to get this bulb into the ground. Now we're going to place our bulb down in the hole, and you can see I've got the stem pointed up, and these roots, they are there, so we're just going to make sure those are down in the hole as best we can. And then we're going to cover, and again, lightly cover the bulb, make sure to fill the hole, and make sure you don't dislodge it or move it around from how you placed it. And then take your mulch, place it over the hole, and bring it up to the level of the surrounding mulch. And there you go, you're done.
So next are rhizomes, and what we have here is a bearded iris. It's a rhizome, and it's a rhizome because it's an elongated stem that goes underneath the ground for the bulb to actually survive and be placed. It has a specific place on the rhizome where the roots come out, and the roots won't come out of the top, they only come out of the bottom. And the stem only comes out at a specific end of the rhizome itself. And here, it's right here, and you can see some of the old leaves and things coming out right here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make sure that this rhizome is actually planted as horizontally as it can be, with the roots facing down and the stem facing to the side or as close to up as we can get it.
Now, to make sure that we get the correct depth to plant and place this bulb, we want to make sure that we're planting it 3 times as deep as it is tall. So to do that, we're going to go to its tallest point, which is right here. That's about 1/2 inch. We need to make sure that this specific bulb is planted about 1.5 inches down in the soil below the level of the topmost part of the soil, and in this case, the mulch. So just make sure to keep that in mind, that you have the mulch depth also included in your depth of your hole to plant the bulbs. So we've dug our hole, we're gonna place our bulb. There we go, the roots are down, the shoot is to the side or as close to up as we can get it, and then we're gonna cover it.
So lastly, we have tubers, and right here we have potatoes. Now, as Allison explained before, they grow their shoots off of what are called eyes, and they kind of resemble eyes. So right here, my finger's pointing to an eye, and this is where the potato's shoots would actually come out of this specific potato to actually go up, break through the soil level, and start growing stems and shoots and actual flowers. Now you can also see there's other little bumpy points around this potato, and those are where the roots are going to come out of. Now you can see this one has a root right there. So when we're orienting these actual bulbs, these tubers, to go into the ground, we just need to make sure that those eyes are pointed up or as close to up as possible. We don't need to really worry about the roots because they'll find their own way out of the bulb and go down. Look at the bulb's height and take that height, take that measurement and triple it to get the correct depth to plant your specific bulb.
So our 3-step system, we've dug the hole, now we're gonna place our bulb, and then the 3rd step, we'll cover it. So to place this bulb, this tuber down on the ground, we're gonna look for that eye, which one's right there. We're gonna place it down in its hole so that eye is facing up. Then we'll cover our bulb. And then we will get the mulch on top of it and finish that. And there you go.
All right, that's it for Chapter 4, Dig Deeper. We hope you found this helpful in order to plant all the different types of bulbs into your garden.
And make sure to always follow our 3-step system. Dig, place, and cover.
Thank you for watching, and be sure to check out the other resources we have ready for you for each chapter of this book.